If you can see it, you can be it. But what happens if you can't see it? When opportunity is not visible, let alone accessible, that's a reality for many, many talented people from underrepresented backgrounds. And that's why today we're talking about the power of mentoring and why it's the foundation for success. I'm Stephen McCann, founder of MCG Consulting, and that stands for Mentor, Connect, Grow. And we work with individuals and organisations to break barriers to opportunity. I also serve as Deputy Chair of the Board of Trustees for Reach Out, a national mentoring charity for young people from underserved communities, where I've seen firsthand how the right support can change lives. And Reach Out have just started doing work with the Lord Mayor's Appeal, and they're a wonderful, wonderful charity. At MCG, we specialise in workplace mentoring, social mobility, and firm-to-firm organisational mentoring. We help businesses share best practices and drive systemic change. And our work also extends to supporting individuals and inclusive workplaces through initiatives like addiction awareness. And we ensure that people facing challenges in the workplace are never left behind. Firm-to-firm mentoring, which I work with and I facilitate on behalf of Progress Together, some of whose members are here today. Firm-to-firm mentoring is one of the most exciting initiatives that we are working on. We're driving to advance social mobility at an organisational level. We create a confidential, non-competitive space for firms to share best practices, tackle systemic barriers, and collectively drive social mobility in their industries. This isn't just another programme. We see this as driving systemic and sectoral change. We've already seen fantastic success in the financial world, and now for the rest of 2025, we're looking to roll that out across the legal world, where social mobility is still an issue that needs a lot of work. But we are really looking to foster real, lasting impact. I'm just going to share a quick story about mentoring, not in the workplace, but from one of my mentees. At Reach Out, as I said earlier, we often say, if you can see it, you can be it. But for many young people, the access to professional networks and role models just does not exist at all. One of my mentees I first met when he was 13 at Bow School. He was utterly disinterested in being a mentee. He told me that many times. And he was making his money by stealing bikes with his friends and selling them on Brick Lane. We'd had a lot of conversations about his future, and the answer to many things are, I want to be an influencer, I want to have millions of pounds by the time I'm 18, I want to be all of this stuff. But actually, when we got down to it, he just didn't know what he wanted to do. And he thought that, earning money like this was his way of making it in the world. I often would say that after a conversation with him, I would say that it wasn't because he didn't have interest in life. He felt that life didn't have an interest in him. That's a really sad realisation to think when you're talking to a 13-year-old. Fast forward to today, he's 19, about 6'5", and we're exploring ways for him to become an engineer. He calls me for advice, and even though people in his world are constantly putting pressure on him to go down a different path, he's still trying to do the right thing. He did this work for himself, but mentoring has helped him see what's possible. So it's just like a wonderful example of what mentoring can do for young people and later on in the workplace, which I'll talk about. Representation and access to networks matter so much. I took a class of mentees to meet Charlie Allen, the first black British tailor to establish a shop on Savile Row. Many of the students had no idea what a tailor was, let alone considered a career in tailoring. Charlie himself broke barriers. He trained under the legendary Tommy Nutter and became the first tailor to showcase at Paris Fashion Week. And in 1994, he opened his own store on Savile Row. He's an amazing, amazing guy. And after we had the mentees come and meet him, he said the best thing about that would be the possibility that in 10, 15 years, one of those kids would have become a tailor and said it all came from walking through the doors of Charlie's shop in Islington. And that would just be amazing. And that's the power of mentoring. It doesn't just change individual lives, it creates legacies. So mentoring provides the foundation. It gives skills, confidence, vision. But what happens when a person is ready for the next step, yet the doors remain closed? That's where sponsorship comes in, which I'll go into again. But I'm sure people have seen the lack of access to networks in the workplace. I remember being at a law firm, and one of my first days, a partner came in. Turns out that one of my fellow new starters knew his dad, and they went off and they had lunch, and he was never to photocopy again. But that's a good example of me sitting there not understanding, how to have these networks, and how do you ever acquire that unless you know exactly, the best ways to do that. The foundation of effective mentoring. What makes a mentee effective? A great mentor is a guide, not a manager. They support, challenge, and empower the mentees to grow. The very best mentors instill trust and confidence, and it's all about having a dedicated space for mentees to openly discuss challenges and being vulnerable as a mentor as well, and telling them your struggles is so kind of attractive for a mentee to open up about what they're going through. They listen more than they speak and use open-ended questions. They set clear objectives and all about constructive feedback as well. So how do we train and support great mentors? Thank you. Organisations should provide structured mentoring. One of my colleagues said this would be the perfect time to advertise our services, but I said I won't. I'm too classy for that. It's all about clear target settings and ensuring that mentor relationships are aligned from the very start. Mentors are given toolkits and frameworks like the ones we provide in the firm-to-firm mentoring, and they've always all been a big success. So linking mentoring to sponsorship. Mentoring prepares people for opportunities, and sponsorship makes sure they get them. So there is a real difference. Key questions, I suppose, would be to ask yourself, are you mentoring, are you providing structured programs at the moment? Are they impactful, or are they just informal conversations? Many firms we work with say that their mentoring programs are just informal conversations, but then you're not tracking it, it's not being driven by the mentee. Things of that nature is incredibly important. So, as it says on the slide here, the mentors, they guide, develop skills and offer career advice. Sponsors, it's more of an avocation and providing visibility for those sponsees they wish to vouch for. Mentoring prepares you and sponsorship propels you, which I wrote last night, and that sounds like it should be on a magnet, but it's true. Explaining the differences is something that's key in these organisations as well, understanding the difference. And I would say as a point of reflection, just think about those people that have helped you in your career. You might have had sponsors that perhaps weren't formally known as such, but they vouched for you, they maybe put you forward for certain things. So please do consider who you can do that for others. And just finally, on our second slide, is this the second slide? Thank you so much. Our second slide is all about strength, how to strengthen the mentoring and sponsorship in your organisation. So I know it's going to be talked about again later, but strengthening the mentoring programs, ensuring it's structured and accessible, of course, training leaders as sponsors, educating staff to advocate for talent, so getting them to really think about who's talented and who from an underrepresented background could do with their sponsorship, because it makes all the difference. Track and reward mentorship and sponsorship. Again, measuring impact is something that's so important. Holding leaders accountable. And let's forget the whole reason that we're here, really. We have an interest in forwarding these things. And again, the work we do with Progress Together in our firm-to-firm mentoring is we're trying to drive sectoral change. And of course, if you give this help to someone, then maybe one day they'll do it for someone else. And that's really just the kind of the dream, really, that people will pass on this wonderful help that they've been given. So mentoring is the first step, but it must lead to action. If we leave sponsorship to chance, it will only benefit those who already have that privilege, and that is so true. Leaders must be trained, not just to mentor, but to really think about actively sponsoring talent. So who are you mentoring? Who are you sponsoring? This may not be difficult to answer. And if it is, maybe this is a time to maybe reflect on that and change that. Ask yourself, who are you sponsoring? Mentoring helps people grow, and sponsorship makes sure people rise. And it really is time to step up, because the change that we can make, so many people in this room have the ability to make this, is going to be profound. So sponsorship isn't just good for employees, it's good for business. Thank you so much. Cheers.